Hi there, welcome to Darlene's Creative Studio. I'm going to show you a quick little project that I have pulled from my unfinished project pile. If you've been following me on YouTube, you know that I have a very large stash of unfinished projects and I've pulled them out of my closet and they are now laying on the floor in my studio. And I have promised myself by the end of this weekend, I would have most of these projects either decided on what I'm going to do with them and continue to work on them, so they will go in a specific box and the rest of the stuff will just go. So I want to get this pile off of my floor and then off of my workbench, where unfortunately I pile everything. And then when I go to work on a project, I have this little tiny corner to work in. So I'm trying to get that a little more organized so that I can prep for some Christmas shows that are coming up. So what I was working on today was I grabbed these round coasters. A friend of mine donated these coasters to me and said, I know you can find something creative to do with them, so I'm going to give them to you. She gave me stacks and stacks of coasters, and I donated some of them to a children's craft group so that the kids could make Christmas ornaments last year. I did keep these round ones. I don't know why. I just kept a little stack of them, and I do have a stack. This is only half of them. So I kept these. And I grabbed them out of the pile and I kind of put them at the top of the pile thinking I'm either going to do something with them or get rid of them, recycle them. And then I was watching my Instagram and I came across, I'm trying to remember her name, Nellie. She's in the design group for Mad Paper Crush. And sorry, Nellie, I will look up the name of your Instagram and put that in the video. But she actually took some square coasters and made some beautiful little journals out of them. And so I was very upset when I went to dig through my stash and realized I gave away all the square ones. So I just came up with a really quick design for the round ones. So I will put the link below this video to Nellie something that's driving me crazy. She has a wonderful 3-part video on making journals from the square ones. And I advise you to go and have a look at that because it's really cool. So what I've done is I've taken these round coasters and I went through my stash to see what do I have on hand that I can use to make these little journals. I don't want to go out and buy anything. I want to use what I have. So I did find I have the cinch that is a binding tool. We are Memory Keeper. It's a binding tool. And I have the little coils that go with the cinch machine. And when I was making some other journals a while ago, I was left over with these pieces that were sometimes 4 or 6 of these coils long. And then when I pulled these little books out, I decided I could use up those little scraps, all the scraps that I had, and make these little books with 4 rings. So I took all the scraps that I had and I cut them down into the 4 little bits. So I have a whole little box here. And these were just all my leftovers. I don't know if you can see them very well, but these are all my leftovers. These are all cut down to 4 of the pieces that I had. And I did take 1 full complete coil that I have. And I think they come with something like 22 or something on them. And I cut that one down as well. And then any pieces I had left over, I tossed them. So there'd be like single ones or twosies. I got rid of those. So I have quite a few of these little 4 pieces. And then I have my coasters. And then I do have, and I do not know why, it must have been when I was Zentangling or something, but I have, don't know if you can see that very well, these Bristol pads, and I think I have 4 of these. I think I bought them when they were on for buy one, get one free, or buy one, get one 50% off, or something like that. And this is great for using for doing Zentangles or some sketching or drawing. So I thought, I have this pad, why not use some of this Bristol and make these really cute little books with the leftover coils and some scrap paper. And they just open up and I have 24 sheets of this Bristol in here. And you can use both sides because it's thick enough that you can draw on both sides. You can Zentangle on both sides, so you can draw a circle or a shape and Zentangle in it. But I just thought these would be nice little tiny books you can make up with some of your scraps And I think I'm going to just use up all my coasters and use up all my scraps and do a whole bunch of these little books and maybe put them in my Christmas sale. If I come across my other watercolor pads, I have some cheaper watercolor pads. I might even put some watercolor paper in there. So these would be good for somebody who's out sketching, doing plein air, or even just a creative drawing a day. Sometimes in the winter months, I like to do a 31-day challenge or do something creative every day for 100 days or something like that. So this would be good because then you can actually keep it in one little book and then you do something creative every day. So this has 24. You have 48 drawings that you can do on either side, or you can do 24 just on one side. So all I've done is taken these little coasters and I've cut it a little bit off the end of one side to flatten it so that these little rings, when I attach them, these little rings, I just found like they would be jutting out a little bit too much. If I put the holes there, then it would be too close to the edge. It just didn't look right. I tried one without cutting it off. So all I'm doing is cutting off about 1/8 of an inch off of one side of the coaster. And what I'm going to do first is, I've done about 3 or 4 of these. I find it easier to cover both the front and the inside. So if this is my cover, I do the fronts and the back, and then I do the insides, and then I cut that little piece off. Then I punch the holes while these are together, the 4 holes, and then I cut out all the Bristol board, and then I cut each of the Bristol boards and then punch those as well. So you want to finish the front and back cover first, then cut it, then punch the holes. I've tried it all the different ways. My holes wouldn't line up, so it's just easier to do it that way. So we're going to take 2 of these coasters. Well, that's my front and back cover. I've got my Bristol here, and for the Bristol, just to keep it simple and easy, again, this was a watch TV while I'm doing it kind of thing. I just took my Bristol pad. I'm just going to flip that down. And I just took one of the coasters. And I literally am just tracing around. And I have one coaster that's kind of wonky, so that's one I use as my template. But I'm just literally drawing around the coaster. And I can get quite a few on one page. And then I put one in the middle here. So what I will do is I'll be watching TV and I will draw all of these circles. So let's get another one right here. Let's see if you can see this. Another one there. So I can get 6 per page. Get another one over here. And then one in the middle here, and that's 6 per page. And that's a good way when you're trying to price out the costs to make something. Normally when I buy these, I write down the price of and I didn't do it on this one, I think I have it on another one. So say this costs me $19.99. I normally write $19.99 plus the tax, whatever that would be. So let's say $21.50, just guessing. And then I would divide it by the 20 sheets, and it would give me the cost per sheet. And then when I'm making something, I know if I use one of these and there's 6 on it, if I put 24 in there, I know exactly how much it costs me for the paper to go into this little journal. So that's what I do. First, I will go ahead and draw out 3 of these sheets. So that's 24 that I put inside the little journal. And then when I'm watching TV, I will just cut around with the scissors, and all of the scrap pieces, when you're left over with, after cutting them all out, I put them somewhere here. I just trim them down. So these are all the scraps that were around those 6 circles, and I've just trimmed off all the little extensions and everything, so they will fit through my Sizzix on my little punch here. And I am using this little die cut, and I'm cutting out these little die cuts from the scraps. And then there's one little part right in the middle that's too tiny for this, so I'm just cutting out some little tags. So what I do is, once I get everything cut out, I throw all the scraps on this tray. I'll trim them all down into this size, workable, sizable pieces. And then again, I will put this on my dining room table. stick it to my table, get my little die cut, and I'll be watching TV, and I'll just sit and run these through the die cut and or punch small tags. And that will be something else. I call it my TV tray kit, where I throw things on here and work on it while I'm watching TV. So that's what I do with all the little scraps after I cut out all the circles for the little journal. All right. So what we start with is the covers. And for this one, I used an Edith Holden book page. And then this page here is from her cookery notes or something like that, I believe it is. That was just another page that I had. So I just used 2 Edith Holden pages and put that in there. And I have tons of these little labels printed out, so that was perfect. This is scrap Tim Holtz paper. So these again are perfect for using up those scraps. A lot of the time Tim Holtz paper comes with, at the back of the book, you get those 6-inch squares. And it's hard to use them when they're so small, but this is a perfect project for these. You can easily get, now these are 4-inch coasters, 4¼ inch coasters. So you can easily use up these little 6-inch scraps. These are also scraps that I have left over from when I'm creating one of my journals, and I use these as signature covers. I always end up with a little strip if I don't make a pocket on the bottom. So again, it's just big enough to cover this little coaster. So I just went through my piles of scraps and just grabbed a whole bunch of different Tim Holtz papers. So I will use up those for these little coasters. I also have some origami paper. These are for making those little folded animals and stuff. I have a whole stack of different papers that I could use for that as well. This is really thin paper, but it's still, you're covering the coaster, so you could use those. You can use a Christmas theme if you wanted to do Christmas themed ones. And then I'm also going to be using up, I am on the design team for Mad Paper Crush for her digitals. And I am going to be using up any of the kits that I have left over when I was working on other projects. I have some leftover pages, and that's also what I'll use. I'll take out some of these. This is Autumn Perpetual, I believe is the name of the kit. So these are left over from my ATC journal project. So I can use these as well. This is one digital that comes with these 2 pages, and it's called Virago. I think that's how you pronounce it. This was one that I printed out, and I was going to use it for another journal, and I cut the papers. It was an 8.5 by 11, so I cut this little strip off, and then I didn't end up using, oh no, I did. I used them for the front covers of that little tag book journal that I did, and that was just what was left over when I was cutting the 4-inch strips. So I'm going to use these as well for covers, and these will be the outside, and then I'll just put something plain on the inside. So I'm going to use up those scraps as well. So those will go in on my pile to use. And then these are, it's a little bit thicker paper, but I thought these would be nice as well to have maybe on the covers. I love this one. This will go on the inside of one for sure. Or even the lines can go on the inside of the journal cover. So anyway, I've got lots of little bits and scraps that I'm just going to use up, and those are going to be my covers. So what I normally do, and let's start really quickly, is I take the covers, and right away I'm going to glue the coaster onto the cover. And the best way to do this for me, because one of my other projects I ended up making the inside of the book upside down, I'm going to follow the pattern of the coaster. So I want to make sure everything is upside right so that I know I'm putting this upside right. So let's say we're going to use this piece here. I'm just going to put the coaster right there. I put the glue on it, and I'm just using glitter glue, artist glitter glue, and I'm just going to roll that out. Now you can use scissors, you can do whatever you like. And then I'm just going to glue the other one onto the other side, so that would be the back of the book, to save myself the trouble of do both gluings at the same time. And you want to make sure you glue right to the edge with these things. So let's just slide that over and let's put that one there. Flip it over. Give it a nice sturdy roll there. Now you can use scissors. I'm just going to use my very sharp knife, and I'm just going to be cutting right along the edge with my knife, trying to keep my knife straight so that I don't cut into the paper underneath the coaster. You can use an X-Acto knife. Again, you can use scissors, whatever you like. So that's just going to lift all the paper off. Let me just make sure I cut that one right here. And then I just turn it. Oops, don't cut into the coaster, Darlene. Sorry, it's very dark in here. All of a sudden it got cloudy. It was nice and sunny this morning, and now it's all cloudy. You must have known I turned my videotape on. There we go. Go. One little piece there. So there is my front or back cover. There, and we're going to cut out the second one. And then once this is cut out, I'm going to distress the edges, and I'm going to distress the flat side of the coaster as well. Oops. I want to stick my head in the camera, so I'm trying to go around the top of the coaster, and you can't really see. I've got a little, this cutting mat is very, very old, and it's getting very worn, and my husband made me a cup of coffee this morning and came in and put the coffee onto my mat and left, and then said, don't forget your coffee's there. And of course now I've got this little bubble where it popped up. So then I will save this, and I can probably cut some little tags and everything out of the scrap. So I don't normally throw any of this stuff away. So what I'll do is, this is what I do with when I cut out the circles on the Bristol. I just cut any of this loose floppy stuff off and throw that into my recycle bin. And then I've got this piece that I can cut a couple of tags or something out of. So I'll put that in my scrap bin. So there is the front and back of my covers. Then I'm just going to take my Distress ink, and I'm going to go along the edge of the coaster, and I'm also going to do this part of the coaster just to make it all even and look like one color. It's got a little bit of a yellowy, you sometimes paint the edges with some white paint or something, or else it goes a little yellowy from the foam or whatever's in the core of these coasters. So again, I'm just kind of adding a little bit of color to the edges there. So I'll do the same with this one. And then before I do anything else, I'm going to choose the paper for the inside, going to glue it on, cut around it, so that this will be covered on both this is the front and this is the back. I will have my inside covers as well. And again, I'm going to use something plain because I want the insides, the outsides to look, I think I'm just going to use this paper. And again, see how my coasters are, the emblem or the logo is facing up, so that I know the words are facing up. If I turn this over, I'm going to be putting it this way, and everything will come out correctly. Let's hope. I say that all the time, and then I look at my project and something is upside down, or I've punched it in the wrong spot, and get so easily distracted. Okay, so I'm going to do this. And I got to remember there's a white rim around the outside, so I'm not going to go right to the edges. So we're just going to put that on there like that. And let's glue this one down. I normally turn the camera off when I do all this kind of stuff and come back, but I will do that when I flip over to my cutting board. Okay. Again, we know which side is up. And we're just going to put that one down like that. Flip it over. Roll it out, and then I'm going to cut around the edges of that. And then when I come back, we're going to start working on punching the holes. Okay, so I've gone ahead and brought my cutting board over. This is my self-sharpening cutter from Fiskars, and I bought this at Joann Fabrics when I was in Florida a couple of years ago, and I use this every single day. and I just love it. It's my favorite cutter, and I'm so happy I bought it. And I used a 40% off coupon, so it was 100 and something, and I got my 40% off. So very good deal. Well worth the purchase. So what I'm going to do now, I've taken my front and my back covers. There's my front and back covers. And now what I want to do is cut that little flat edge on either side. So these coasters are 4 1/4 inches, and I was originally going to cut it at 4 inches, and then I went to 3 7/8. And in order to hold this straight, this is a metal spacer from colorwayarts.com, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on my cutter. There's a little tiny lip here, and I'm going to butt it up against the lip there, and I'm going to mark it at that 3 7/8 spot right there. Let's see if I can find it on the bottom here. Okay, so that's my 3 7/8 mark. And then what I'm going to do is take my coaster, and I'm going to slide it, get that out of the way, slide it underneath the cutter, and I'm going to push it up against that top bar. Make sure it's straight, the words are straight. Hold my bar here, and I'm going to push the coaster up against that little thing. So it's pushed up against here, and it's pushed up against the top there. And I want to make sure my lettering is going horizontally straight, and I just use one of these lines to kind of line things up. And then I'm going to let go of that little bar, and I'm going to push on this little plastic thing here, and I'm going to cut. If I can, actually, I'm going to do it the other way. I find it easier to pull than to push. Let's try that and do that again. And right there. Straighten it up. Oh, that's not straight at the top there. There we go. And I'm going to hold it and pull it down like that. So there is my back piece cut. And then this one, I want to cut it on this side. So I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to cut it on with the inside facing up. So always remember to look at your covers and figure out where they're going to be going, what direction they're going in. Always check, 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 check. And this is something I have to tell myself over and over and over again. Check, 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 check. So we don't end up with something upside down. Again, we're pushing it up against the top bit here and against that ruler, and we're making sure our words are straight, or your pattern, whatever you have on it. And then I'm just going to hold that there and pull. Now, I don't normally cut this thick. It's just foam, but I don't normally cut stuff this thick on this cutter, but I want to make sure I get everything straight. So there are my 2 coasters with their little flat edge here, and that is the front and back cover. And then what I'm going to do is I will punch those on the cinch machine. But with the little papers that we marked onto the Bristol board, these are some of the ones I've already cut out. So I just sit and cut them out and cut them out and cut them out. And I'm doing 24 per book. So all I'm doing is taking these, and again, I'm marking my 3 7/8. And I've used the coaster to draw the circle, so I know they're going to fit in the book. And I sometimes cut on the inside line of the drawing, because when you draw a pencil line, it makes it larger than the circle. So I try and cut the circle on the inside of the pencil line. And I'm going to take 2 of these little coasters, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to put them in there. I'm going to push them up against that top bar, hold my other one and push them up against that bar, so that they're both in the same fitting. And then I cut and throw that little piece away. So that's going to give me the same cut that I use for these. There's my little cut, and these will go inside my little books. And then what I will do is, sometimes when I'm cutting, the circles aren't exactly straight. Once I'm done, I will actually go through and trim up all of the papers, and I'll do 2 or 3 at a time. Just lay them like that, and then I'll just mark with my pencil, wherever my pencil may be. I've moved everything. Pencil, 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 pencil. Here it is. I just go like this with my pencil. And know that I have to trim that up a tiny bit. And I'll do that with every 2 that I put together. I'll just trim it as I go, so that you don't end up having to trim it later. because you want them to fit within the circle of the coaster. There. Sorry, I get a tickle when I talk too much. Okay. So when we lay that flat like that, now the paper is no longer sticking out. So that's what I'm going to do is I cut 2 of these at a time. And I'll keep going. I'll mark it at my 3 7/8. 3 7/8. Push it up to the top piece. Push it over to this piece. The reason I don't use my ruler is because my ruler has foam on the back of it. So it leaves a little gap when I set my ruler down and I can't push the paper up against it. This is a solid piece of metal, so I can push my pieces up against that. And it doesn't slide underneath. Okay, so there's the next 2. So we'll take those 2 out. Put those 2 in. And hold them against there. And that one is pretty darn close. Doesn't look like I have to really do too. And if it's only out, I could buy a hair. I'm not going to trim it. I'm just going to leave it as is and keep going. So I take another 2. So I will go ahead and I'll do all 24 of my pieces. So I do this in stages. And I'll work with, this is better on my table over there. It doesn't slide around. So I will go ahead and cut all 24 of these pieces and make sure they're all nice and flat and fit within that. And you really have to tap it so that it falls into place. And make sure your 2 coasters are even. And again, there's another one. It is pretty darn close. There's a little tiny bit on this side here, but I don't worry about it if it's going to stick out just a smidge. Oops. So there we go. I hit and trim that little piece. So these are all. So we're going to head and finish up those 24 pieces and then we'll work on punching. So now that I've cut all 24 sheets of the Bristol with that little edge using my cutter, and I have my cover cut, setting up, excuse me, my cinch in order to push this in and get it exactly. It took me a little planning and fiddling. Because this coaster is 4 1/4 inches wide, I marked at 2 1/8 to find my center. And sometimes I want to double check to make sure I've got that right. So let's say that's my center. And it's just a little tiny mark on the cover, and I'll do one on here too, just to be sure. These ones are a little bit smaller, but okay. So then what I did was, I'm going to open up this arm. So the arm's going to kind of stick up in the camera for a moment. Actually, let's close it for a second. In order to get this to go, there is a little ledge here on the side. Sorry, I have a tickle. And it only goes so far. So I can't butt up I'm only using the 4 center hole punches. So you pull these ones out and they will not punch holes. So I'm using the 4 middle ones, and there is a little, on the front of the machine, there is a little tiny arrow right at the front that when you slide your paper in, you can mark off your center. So my little center dot, when I push that in, I'll be able to see my center dot lined up with that arrow, and I know I'm in the center of my coaster. But because this little thing does not, and I'm going to lift this up so you can see it, because this little bar here does not push in any farther, I had to put something here that I could push up my coaster up against, so I know I'm going in straight every single time. So I just grabbed these little spacer bars that I have from Colorway Arts, and I just push that in to where I need it to be. And then what you do is you push this flat mark right in, and it goes up against the back of the machine underneath. So when I push that in and it's completely flat, there's my center mark, and it's lined up perfectly with the center arrow. So I know where I've moved this little bottom tray, and I've put these little markers in. Every time I slide something in, whether it's paper and or the cover, it's always going to be centered on that mark. And you always have to make sure you're pushed right up against that back wall. Sometimes you get blockage from the little paper that falls down after you've punched. So you kind of, when you put it in, you kind of want to make sure that there's nothing in the way when you're pushing up against the back there. So there's my 2 little bars, and then I'm just going to push it down. So that was my back cover. So I want to make sure my front cover is going in the same direction. And again, my back cover, I have the inside facing up. Just like the book when it's put together, you want to punch the holes exactly the same way. So the inside cover is facing up for my back. And then the front cover, the front is facing up. And again, I'm going to push it against these bars. And I'm going to push it completely back until it's flat up against that, ouch, that wall in the back of the machine. I want to make sure it's nice and flat. And then I'm going to punch that one. And it punches through this foam very easily. So there's my front and back cover, and see how my holes have lined up perfectly? So we're going to do the same thing, and we can do about 6 pieces of this paper because we can do quite a bit stack wise. And again, same thing. I'm just making sure that my piece is flat here so that when I push it in, it goes right up against the back of that piece. And then I'm going to push it up against my little bars here. So let's push back, push it over against the bars, hold it, and punch. And then these pages will go in the book, and I'm going to set the book like this. That's my back cover. I'm just going to set them on top like that and keep going. So I'm going to grab the next couple of the papers, make sure they're stacked nice and evenly, push them in, oops, hold down my bar, push them back, back, back. And if some of them are cut a little wonky, you'll be able to trim them up afterwards. Nothing is ever 100% perfectly straight, but we try. Oops, what happened there? See, now I think I've got something stuck in my, yep. I'm just going to take my ruler. One of the little pieces of paper is sticking up, so it won't let me push my paper in completely flat. Okay, and now, you always want to make sure it's completely flat against that back. Now will it go? There we go. I find it easier too to punch it twice, like pull the arm down twice, and it will push those holes down into the reserve underneath. So just to get rid of that extra little piece. And the last couple. Like that. So without these 2 little markers, because my piece is so small, I can't slide this bar over enough to have something to lean against. So there is that part. On the side of this machine, and I don't know if you can see it or not, I'm going to close it so you can see. Along the edge here are these little bumps. See them? So what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your little coils, and the part that's square, there's one part that's just little fingers, and then there's a part that's square. You're going to actually rest the square parts on these little parts on the side here. So you're just going to set it on there, and it sits right up against that. Get off my paper. You're going to take your pieces of card or Bristol, and you're going to slide them onto the rings. So you're doing that first. This is the back cover. You're keeping that there. You're going to put your front cover on next, like that. And then you're going to put your back cover on with the inside facing up. Because when you turn it around and flip it to the back, underneath, that's what it's going to look like. But you actually want this piece on top. So I hope that makes sense. You want the inside facing up, and that's going to be on top of everything. So I'm going to take it off, and you're going to turn it around. So the back of the machine has this little button, and it has all the different sizes of your coils. This is a 3/4 inch coil, and I have that set at 3/4. You push it down and turn it to the height of your coils, and then you stick it between, and I'm just going to stand it up so you can see. There's a little space here. There's a little ledge, and you're going to rest your coils against that and push it flat against the back here. Oops, my little markers moved. That's okay, I don't need them right now. So you're going to put your coils in with your fingers on the top and your square on the bottom, and you're going to push it flat up against the back of the machine. So we set it inside, push it flat up against the back, and push it down. And it closes up your coils. And the reason you've put the back on top is when you flip it around, where it's joined is going to be on the inside back cover. So there's my lovely little coil. Move this guy out of the way. There's my coil. There's my front cover. There's all my papers. And there is the joint where it meets. And there's the inside back cover. So that little part is hidden inside the back cover. And then I just take my little, wrong ones, I just grab the wrong ones. These are my little snippers. And when you cut apart these coils, you're cutting between the squares. So you end up with these little wings. And I usually try and trim those down just a little bit, so that they're not as sticking out as much. So I'm just going to trim that guy back. So now I don't have those big, huge wings sticking out. So there is my, wherever that little black piece went. There is my little cover. And then I'm just going to grab one of my stickers out of my little cereal box drawer. And I'm just going to add a little sticker there. And I will probably just add a little distressing on the edge, just slightly. Not a lot. This one's already dark. Get my art glitter glue, and we'll just add this label, and then we're complete. There we go. Put my needle back in my glue. Move my drawer. And there is my little coaster creative journal. You can use it for Zentangles. You can use it for create a day. You can use both sides because it's Bristol. It's thick enough. You won't see through the back. And you've got a lovely little journal using up the supplies that I have and those coasters that were gifted to me. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. Just a quick tutorial. I started making them this morning and thought, Darlene, turn that camera on. You've got to turn the camera on. So again, you can take a Christmas card or some Christmas cardstock and cover these with Christmas, and do maybe some red and green cardstock in there for drawing on with a black marker. There's so many options you can do for these, but I'm going to use up that those 2 or 3 pads of Bristol and go ahead and finish up using the Tim Holtz and the Mad Paper Crush paper. If you want to see any of Sharon from Mad Paper Crush, her digital kits, you can find her on Etsy. And if you purchase any of her digital kits, use the coupon code Darlene's Creative Shop and you'll get 10% off of your purchase. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you real soon. Bye for now.